going on, y'all? Welcome back to LUMIX Live this week. We have a lot more laid back stream for this week. Basically, just gonna hang out. We're gonna address some questions that y'all have, just kind of chat and, kind of just, like I said, hang out. I got one thing that I do want to, kind of like show y'all, because someone did ask this question at the beginning of the chat, and I've gotten a couple of questions about it. And given Blackmagic Design's update last night for adding BRAW for the S1R Mark II, I want to walk through, how you access it, what you have to do it, and what you can expect in the usability side of it. So I've got that all set up so we can talk about that. So I do have one demo ready to go, but I do have the camera hooked up. So if you've got questions about different things in the camera, let me know. Tag at LUMIX USA, as you can see a bunch of people are doing. We can go through some of those questions and, just kind of chill out on this Thursday afternoon. Before we dive into all the conversation and just kind of start addressing your questions, make sure to take a look at LUMIX Pro Services if you are in the US. We have the Red and Platinum tier. The Red tier is free, so if you have purchased a new camera, follow the QR code right below me here or down in the description. You can get yourself registered on it. That's going to get you your 3-year extended manufacturer warranty. You're also going to be getting access to the portal there, so should you need any service and support, you have the ability to use that as a way instead of having to go through general service and support. If you're somebody who likes higher level of service and support, you can take a look at the Platinum tier, which is something you can upgrade to. That is a paid level service. That will get you everything that the Red tier does, but on top of that, you're going to get 2-day repairs with next-day shipping both ways. You're going to get 20% off out of warranty repairs. I don't know why OBS has decided to really cycle that one fast now all of a sudden. But yeah, you're going to get a bunch of access for higher level service and support that you can take advantage of throughout the year. You also get a membership hotline, so if you'd rather speak to somebody, you can jump on a phone with people Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 East Coast time. So yeah, I encourage you to take a look at those if you don't already. And let's kind of just chat for a little bit before we talk about Blackmagic Raw with the S1R II. Take a look at some of the chat that's come in here. Solarian, please. Yep. So that the first comment is what we were. Why I was mentioning I want to talk about Blackmagic Raw, and also actually Piku's comment about wanting Raw for 3x2 support, which externally you do have access for. So we'll talk about all that. Cliff. Oh, hey Cliff. It's been a while. It says, is there a large eye cup that we can use like the old S1 series had? Unfortunately not, at least not from us. It's a similar design, but it's not a removable viewfinder or eye cup. So if someone's making one that can slot over it, I'm sure, there may be a company out there. I haven't seen one. I was never a fan of the bigger, larger eye cups personally, but I know there are a lot of people that do prefer them. So I would just keep an eye out on some of the different platforms. It might be something that you'd be looking at like eBay or AliExpress, maybe Amazon. But yeah, nothing formally from us. Zero says, can we get OpenGate for RTP or RTMP? So I've asked this a while ago. My understanding is I think it's the same idea and the same kind of limitations that HDMI has, that there isn't a standard for 3x2 ratio video that would have to go out. And then on top of it, it's also what bit rates would it have to run at. So that's my understanding. That's why there is no OpenGate for RTP, RTMP, is that there's not a standard. It doesn't exist in a standard. Or if it does, like if there is the standard and it's not part of it, it's not something that we're going to deploy because we can't guarantee that it would work. But it is something that we've always, kind of asked. It's arguably, or not really arguably, to be fully transparent with you, it's definitely going to be something that's much lower on the priority list. Because honestly, this is probably like the second time I've had someone ask about that. But we always bring them up. The engineering team is always made aware of this kind of stuff. The planning team, firmware team, software team, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes there's just other more important things that we're working on, or there just isn't enough of a request that really kind of brings it up the priority scale. So it's more of a, yeah, cool, if we can get around to it, cool. If not, we're not getting enough people actually asking about it. And there's not really many use cases that have ever been presented about using it. So, but, like I said, we'll always bring it up and, present it at least. See here, Rhett says, how's it going, Rhett? It says, which cameras are LUMIX Flow ready at the moment? I'd really like to start using that more. So as of right now, it is the S1II series. So that's S1R2, S1II, and S1IIe. We will be having an update, I just don't know when yet, for S5II, S5IIX, and GH7. So obviously as we get closer to that, and, when we're ready to, let everyone know about it, as far as like availability and release dates and all that kind of stuff, obviously we will let you know. But I haven't heard of any, definitive date at this time yet. So, Cliff says, why is waveform clip IRE different from ProRes and H.265, 85 versus 90 IRE? That's one that I'd actually have to double check with Matt on. I don't want to give you incorrect info, Cliff, but I think it has something to do with the way ProRes versus H.265 are compressed, and various different, the way the images are processed. But it is something that I'll check in with Matt about and try to get you an answer. It's a little above what I really have a comfortable enough understanding to give you a definitive answer on. Bass says, please do something about bass roll-off and the microphone preamps. We've asked about this. Definitely keep commenting, letting us know. But I haven't heard anything as far as if it's something that's going to change, if it's something that is kind of like the RTP, RTMP thing. Sometimes it's a matter of, is it, how limited use case is the challenge that's coming up? Helps determine where the priority is. If it's not something that's being widely requested, that's a harder thing to put higher up on the priority, based on things that are maybe more impactful to the wider range of people using it. That's not saying that it's not important. It's a matter of where do you put priority for timing and release and putting the resources into changing. If by our spec it is designed like that, that's an even harder thing. I haven't seen much outside of, I think, the comments that you've given me about how the bass roll-off is. So I honestly don't know. We present it and it gets into the list. So GH7 feature request, false color. Yeah, we've gotten that request a lot. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to come to the GH7, or honestly anything outside of the S1II series. Rhett says, I got another email back from B&H saying my S1II is still back ordered. Is that implying that even with the current batch being sent to them, they won't cover my order? It fully depends on the dealer, Rhett. It depends on how many orders that dealer has. We have shipped out a lot of S1IIs in the US, and I know globally we've shipped out a lot of them. So in some cases, it does just come down to, did the dealer order enough of them to cover, what their expected back orders or their expected initial ordering would be. As someone who came from working in retail and having to, kind of try to predict how much inventory I needed to bring in for a new product launch, it is a challenging thing. Sometimes you get them right, sometimes you get them pretty close. Other times you end up just being wildly off. My understanding from some of the conversations I've had with various dealers is that the pre-orders were way higher than expected at the initial, kind of release timing of it. So that means, especially with everything going on US-wise, we're not going to get into any kind of politics or anything like that, but the current economic situation and with products and, kind of making sure that dealers have inventory with uncertainty in pricing, that kind of thing makes it hard for like just exacerbates, if I'm trying to understand how many products I should have versus what as a business I can afford to bring in and have sit on the shelf, for a period of time, maybe longer than I normally would as a business owner. Those things all come into play. Our role is always just trying to manufacture and deliver globally as many units as we possibly can to keep up with demand. But I will say that, demand has been a lot higher than I think in general was expected, which is on the one hand, it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. It does, make it a little challenging because I know a lot of you are very excited to get the equipment. But production's going on. We are shipping product out, and sometimes it's just a matter of moving through the system. So, when stuff gets to the ports, having to clear through imports and customs and all that kind of stuff, and then get to the dealer, and then be inventoried, and then be put on the truck to be shipped out for you. All of that stuff, kind of gets exacerbated, especially more recently when you had, kind of like when we went through COVID where, we didn't have people that could work at the docks that could offload the boats of product and then get them on trucks and get them shipped out. You run into some of those same problems recently with some of the uncertainty that's been, in the market, in that side, as far as like how are imports handled, what are the fees that have to be charged for imports, all that stuff. It slows everything down. So, yeah, they're coming in. Just because they haven't got an order confirmation yet, or that it's still back ordered, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have or they didn't order enough to cover, this second round of product coming in. Sometimes it's just a matter of, they're waiting until they get the product in their warehouse to flip orders from back ordered to processing and then confirmed. So, second request, false color in the GH7 as well as 60p MP4 Lite. Yeah, we've definitely asked a lot about, MP4 Lite being able to move through more systems, but yeah. FC, in photography TTL, exists to auto-expose speed light to adjust flash brightness. Can we have custom control video LED brightness using Bluetooth while recording videos like TTL for photo? It's an interesting idea, FC. I'm not sure the practicality of it. No, that's the wrong word for it. I'm not sure how you would deploy it because the LED would have to have the ability to have some sort of light sensor that's reading a reflective, kind of marker of like, this is what the brightness should be. I don't know of anyone that does it, but it's an interesting idea that definitely we can pass on. I don't know if it's something that would be feasible in any kind of short term because I can see a number of areas where you would need to do some pretty deep level development, both hardware and software, to kind of make it work. Bluetooth is great. It's not always the best for stuff like that. Bluetooth in cameras has relatively low latency. However, Bluetooth is it's also not necessarily, the best for things where you need to be, updating quickly, at least when it comes to cameras. The Bluetooth systems that are used in interchangeable lens cameras is very different than what we use like in our phones. The chipsets may be similar, but the software that runs and what is capable to be utilized would be very different. But FC, it's another good idea. We'll definitely pass it in and see. I think it could be something cool if it was ever launched. Hi, Kofi. How's it going? You popping in and out? Awesome to see ya. Holy beard. Yeah. The beard's getting a little fluffy. And I got the classic, I work at home in my office and don't shave my neck. So, yeah. Oh, well. Yeah. Where did we go? A couple more in here. Lewis, any idea when B&H may be receiving the next batch? So in tandem with Rhett's comment, it should be finding inventory should be arriving soon. My understanding is that stuff is on its way, if not already, in the country and then moving through. I believe my understanding was that it was going to be like mid-July by the time everything is processed and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of, yeah. JT, anybody watch EH Films 1 year review of the GH7? I did. Actually, I watched that yesterday. I saw a comment over on DP Reviews Forum. And yeah, that, if you haven't seen EH Films review of the GH7, I highly encourage you to go take a look at it. I might be able to link it. Actually, yeah, let me see if I can link it. If you want to see someone who puts a ton of effort into that, and has the visual storytelling to like back up their position on it, holy crap. And ironically, as I found out, they're located near me, so that's even cooler. Yeah, let me share this in the chat. GH7 review by EH Films. There you go. Yeah, I obviously check it out after the stream. But I highly encourage you to take a look at EH Films review. I think just it's an awesome review. It looks really cool. Obviously, I like it because it's about one of our products, but I just think visually it's an awesome piece put together. A lot of care and effort, you can tell, went into that. So I get my S1II today and hyped after shipping in 3 days, but when will the 24-60 be available? The 24-60s, I think those are actually having a harder inventory position. The orders on those are exponentially higher than was initially thought. We are manufacturing them. Everything's going fine with that. It's just a matter of just the sheer volume that people have been putting orders in for that has made that, very hard to come by. So we are working as fast as we can to kind of clear out as many of the back orders as we can. We do have more of those coming in as well, to kind of help that situation. But honestly, when you've got a, 24-60, 2.8, a lens that's been, reviewed as positively as it has, and it comes in at $999 US, that's kind of a good recipe for it's a highly in-demand lens. So, yeah, they're being produced, they're being shipped. Quantities are, honestly, it's probably one of the best-selling lenses we've had. And it's only realistically been shipping for less than 30 days. So, yeah. I know this is about LUMIX, but I still find it fascinating that Samyang joined the alliance, dropped one lens despite having dozens of Alids and nothing else. Yeah, you'd have to head over to Samyang and harp on them about wanting more lenses for it. Focus stacking on the S1R2 could do with some tweaks, sequence options like focus bracketing, separate folders for each stack, raw composite file. Yeah, Artie, like Adrian Crawley. That's definitely a given that this is the first time we've done bracketing in the camera, feedback like that is awesome. It's funny seeing features that get deployed in the way that, if I'm working from an engineering mindset standpoint, right, that the way it's deployed engineering-wise makes sense. It doesn't do more than it needs to. It does, it does what it says on the tin. But as users, as photographers that actually utilize it in the field, you guys have good experience with like, hey, this is cool, but it could be better if you do X, Y, and Z. So if you guys lay that kind of stuff out, like how you envision wanting to see it, that helps, our engineers kind of also look at it from different perspectives. I think it's the same for every, any kind of technology or any kind of product out there, right? There's how you think it can work, and then when it gets into the real world, no matter how much testing you do, no matter how much, kind of research you do, you're still only looking at maybe this, which is statistically, relevant to the market, but then when the market actually gets it, you balloon that value out so much more that you can get some pretty cool, suggestions for improvements over time. So, yeah. Let's see here. Conrad, do I need another component to use S52X as webcam or to live stream? Lumix tether doesn't work. It's going to depend on what operating system you're on for Lumix tether. We did, for a little while there, we had the Lumix webcam software driver, or the webcam drivers, which they've never left beta. That were kind of a patchwork during the pandemic so that we could, have the cameras at least work that way because we didn't do USB UVC. And my understanding is I don't think the older cameras can even do UVC. It's just not part of something the processor's capable of doing. So what I can recommend, ironically I have one on my desk, is something as simple as this. This is just a USB-C to HDMI adapter. Literally, this is a capture card. They're pretty cheap. You can get them on Amazon. If you're going to do things for live streaming or for, webcam or things like that, one of these things work. Just plug the HDMI in. Make sure you turn HDMI info display off. This way you get a clean feed. And then your programs will just recognize it as a USB camera that you can plug into pretty much any program. We've changed up the system here for Lumix Live. I use an S1II right now, actually. I am using the USB-C UVC output. So we're outputting USB to my desktop, and then we're plugging it into OBS so I can stream with it. So pretty straightforward. I still have these around because if I'm traveling on the go, sometimes it's just, I'd rather just use HDMI if I have all the stuff with it. Especially because with HDMI, you can do all the way up to like 4K 60 with it. USB webcam tethering, you're 1080p. So in this case, I'm 1080p upscaling to a 4K in OBS, and then we stream in 4K. So, let's see here. Unrelated, but what is your daily driver camera right now? The S1R2? Yeah, actually, my daily driver is the S1R2. It has been actually since we released the camera. My previous daily driver before we moved into phase detect was actually this camera. This is an original S1R. So big chunky boy here. This was my primary. This has now moved to actually my kind of specialty camera because this is a full spectrum IR converted S1R2, which means I can filter it up with different effect filters. So I can shoot 850 nanometer black and white infrared. I can shoot IR chrome from Kalari Vision. They did the work on this, so I highly recommend if you are looking at wanting to do that, just understand that we don't cover warranty when you do things like that to the cameras. But I had great experience with them. To be clear, I got a deal doing it through the industry. But yeah, highly recommend that kind of thing if you're doing it. It's a good way to, if you have an old camera that's kind of just sitting around, you're not really doing anything with it. It's a cool thing that you can do to your products to, potentially, get more or different use out of it. But again, just remember that if you decide to ever do any kind of modifications like that to the camera, we have no responsibility if it breaks. It is totally on you at that point. So yeah, my current daily driver is S1R2. I have the BG2 battery grip on there. I have a SmallRig full cage for the grip and the body. And lens-wise, it's either jumping between the 24-60, or I dug out my old Leica or Lights Sumeron. This is an old school M series lens that I've just got a TT Artisan adapter on here. And yeah, I use most of that stuff. I have been playing with the 70-200 2.8 a lot more. We've had really crappy weather here in Austin. Obviously in Texas, we've got a lot of big problems with the weather and terrible situation that's happened. But with that has brought a lot of wildlife out, so I've been playing around photographing some of the wildlife around here. DJ says, we yearn for premium compact interchangeable lens cameras, MFT and L mount. That's all. Have a nice weekend. Thanks, DJ. Just out of curiosity, how does development work with Panasonic? Canon seems to have multiple teams developing things independently, but it feels like everything is more cohesive with LUMIX. So I can give you a little bit of info. So like most products, right? When you think of development for products, you'll have, a team that's devoted to different components of it. So you'll have a team that's devoted to the physical parts of the camera. So the chassis design, the mechanical side of the team. So those are, our mechanical engineers that are working on fit and finish, material choices, button layouts, that kind of stuff. Then you have like image quality engineering teams. You have software engineering teams for the UI and the UX, or the UI. You've got, focus engineers. Those are teams that are literally just working on the autofocus systems. You have other engineering teams across the board, and they all work very close and hand in hand with each other on various different components. So one of the things, and maybe this can help explain why, if you ever put in a request, and I think this is true to like any camera company, whenever you put in requests and, there are firmware things that you want to see done to a product, there's reasons why it will take a while for it to happen. Just because, say, software, from line of code, if we break something to the most basic level, just because you can say, like, hey, it's just code, you can write code as long as it's within whatever your processor is capable of doing, fine, and a software engineer would know that. That's all well and good, but how does that interact with the UI? So then you have to have the UI engineering team also be in part of the conversation, that if you do X, how does it affect Y? Then you also have to talk to the mechanical engineering team side. So those that are in charge of like thermal management and the physical capabilities of the camera. How does doing that work if it passes these different checkpoints? And you have to go to image quality. Does it affect anything in image quality? If it's doing anything that affects image quality, now you've got them involved. So you have a ton of different checkpoints that have to be met when you want to introduce a feature or change a default, like something even as simple as changing a default in the camera, right? All of those little points have to be met and gone through so that the brand, whoever it is, can confidently release and say, hey, we've done as much of the work, as much of the homework as we can. We've gone over it as, to the best of the abilities. And here's the update. We've tested it. It's not going to break anything. The catch on that is that, we are working with incredibly complex tools here. I think everybody's run into problems with your phone updating and then something breaks and then you got to have another update later that fixes that problem and maybe it adds another problem. Those kinds of things can happen, especially in the camera industry, but engineering teams and software teams have to be much more attentive to, if we're going to put something on a camera that you, and maybe not even you, maybe someone who has purchased it, relies on that product for their income, their job. It has to be that whatever gets released doesn't break it, doesn't make it a tool that you can't work with. So, and by that I mean bricking the camera, bricking the lens, locking out features because, code was done erroneously, that kind of thing. Or there's that one thing that just missed everybody and, was still there. So that's kind of the general idea of how it works. It is a lot more complicated than that. There's more meetings that happen with firmware updates. So, yeah, it's a good question. Do you know if there's an L bracket available for the new S1II series yet? I'm not sure. I would check with either Really Right Stuff or SmallRig. I don't know. I think SmallRig did make a bracket. I know that they did make one for the original S5, which works on the S5 Mark II series. It kind of works on the S1II series, but there's a little bit of clearance problems there. The problem with that older L bracket was that because we changed the eyelets on the cameras, so we went from the like dangly triangles to the built-in, kind of U-hooks that are built into the chassis. It changed the side clearance, so you actually had to have the L bracket part spaced further away from the camera, or you had to take a grinder to it like I did on mine and just kind of grind the corner down. Not on the camera, on the bracket. But outside of that, I'm not sure of any L brackets that I know of. Yeah. Let's see here. Is there any way to see the footage with LUT monitoring without turning into real-time LUT? Without turning it into real-time LUT on LUMIX Flow. So as of right now, no. LUMIX Flow will only preview the log footage if you are going to use it. So that is something to be aware of as of now. We do understand that we want to have the ability to preview a LUT in LUMIX Flow. We fully understand that. It is something that we've pushed over to the engineering team to have them work on what would an elegant solution be to make it an actual practical use, so that, does it carbon copy what's on the camera or is it something that you choose in the app? All of those things, kind of like what I was saying with the, camera side of it, same stuff in the software side. What is the most practical but also user-friendly way to deploy stuff like that? So at this point, I don't have any other kind of info for you on that. But as of now, yeah, if you're going to use LUMIX Flow, as of today, it is, it's going to display the log footage for you. Are there any updates for the S5II, S5IIX? Nothing as of today. We will be bringing LUMIX Flow to those two cameras, but I don't have any other information aside from that. Red says, where did that comment go? Where did that go? Whoa. Speaking of politics, just kidding in all seriousness, how has Panasonic been like the only company not to raise prices due to current stuff happening? Yeah. It's kind of a good point to, kind of maybe understand, is that the S series stuff hasn't had a price. We have there has been some price stuff on some of the point and shoots. They've changed in price. I think some lenses too, but yeah, the S series stuff hasn't changed. There hasn't been anything for us for that. So I can't find any information on this anywhere. Does using app either via Bluetooth, Bluetooth wireless or USB-C cable affect autofocus and high frame rate video settings, same as using HDMI monitor? If you're using LUMIX Flow and you're using the USB-C or Wi-Fi, it has the similar changes to subject detection when using higher frame rate over 4K in that HDMI does. It's still a video output. It's still a processing that happens. So you have the same parameters are going to be between the two. Tom, any info on Windows 11 File Explorer preview fix? The newer RW2 files for my G9 Mark II still appear as pink noise. Please ask developers to work with Microsoft on this. By the way, icons do appear okay. Yeah, this isn't an issue on us. This is an issue on Microsoft to deploy. The raw files are there. They've got the information they need. It's something that's got to get into there. So that's on Microsoft at that point. I tried the S1II and using the false color seemed similar to EL Zone because it's metering and stops. I haven't used EL Zone, so I could be getting it wrong maybe. I've never used EL Zone either. I've only ever, kind of lightly understood false color. I am definitely not the person that would speak with authority on false color. I just know that skin tone should be green to pink, kind of in that area, and then I know that my skin tones are properly exposed, and then I can adjust my highlights. If I'm lighting the scene, I can adjust my ratios through lighting. Or if I'm outdoors, and I want to shoot, say, for HDR, I overexpose to the point where my highlights aren't in red. They're just into that yellow point, and I know that I'm basically maxing as bright as the exposure as I can. So, yeah. Let's see here. Darren, can we get an entire rework of the file folder system? Something easier on the UI UX, more characters, folders that don't overflow, and not virtual. If you mean the file structure like DCIM and then the PANA folders and stuff like that for file, that's not us. That's DCIM. That's a standardized folder structure, and we do have the cinema file structure on the GH7, but we don't have that in the other cameras. So, how does the relationship with Sigma work for MFT? I think a lot of people would love to see that newer 17-40 on that system. In fact, I know they do. That's fully on Sigma for that. Micro Four Thirds is a different consortium than the LMAN Alliance, so different rules, different kind of parameters that companies work in. That would be totally up to Sigma what they want to do with their lenses. LUMIX Pro Services in Canada, I 100% hear you. We've passed that back with a lot of the stuff. Have you had a chance to check the base recording format being switched when moving to slow and quick? I haven't actually. Thank you for reminding me. We could probably take a look at that while we're on the stream. I'm going to do a couple more questions, and then I want to show you about the RAW over HDMI update here. And then we'll come back to more questions. Al says, what's the lag on USB webcam feature? So you're looking at it right now. I don't know why I waved. You can't see the screen up here. It's pretty seamless. I'm not someone that's affected by delay. HDMI delay has never bothered me, even if it's only like, a couple of frames. So, again, I'm not the best person to ask about that. I personally, probably the best thing I can explain is I've got USB-C out from the camera into my computer. I have my microphone that's running through a different USB-C, so I'm not using audio from the camera. That's running into a Rode A1 kind of mixer preamp thing with my which microphone is this? With my NT1 microphone, and I'm not doing anything to sync the audio here. So what you're seeing and what I'm capturing on this, just raw into the computer, into OBS, is how synced they are. So, yeah. I also use autofocus, so I'm not worried about focus pulls or anything like that. Greetings from Cancun. I love this live. Why LUMIX diminishes influence? Weaken the GH6 model, or is false assumption spread out? Blessings for all the LUMIX USA team. Not sure what you mean by diminishes influence, weakened the GH6 model, or is it a false assumption spread out? Are you referencing that the GH6 came out after we had PDAF in the S1II and the 2X? That's just a product cycle thing. Product cycles, unfortunately, sometimes don't overlap the best. Yeah. So, yeah. Are the S5IIX able to get updates as well? We purchased so many series cameras. We'd love to get some more out of the current models like the S1II. I don't know how much, if anything, from the S1II series can make it back to the S5II series cameras. I know that we're bringing flow to those cameras, but outside of that, I honestly don't know. The change with the chassis, the slight revision in processors, the fact that they are, technically they're different sensors, they have very similar characteristics to each other. There's a lot more changed between those cameras than, kind of face value there. EH Films, howdy, how's it going? We actually just shared your GH7 review. Everyone's raving about it. Awesome job. Why is Panasonic not offering IR converted bodies themselves? I don't know any brand that does. Well, maybe besides, I think Canon did for a little bit. They have their Astro versions of it. It's just not a market we're in. So, Let's see here. All right, let's talk about, because we're kind of near the end of those questions. All right, let's talk about RAW over HDMI. So the as mentioned last night, at least if I looked at the information right, last night, Blackmagic released the Video Assist 12G 5 and 7 inch update for the monitors that adds Blackmagic RAW support for the S1R2. Obviously, we had the S1II and the S1IIe had support already. The R just took a little bit longer for them to get it out. So your camera, on your camera side, you're fully ready. Nothing you need to do as of now. The update that we released a couple weeks ago brought all of that to the camera. So camera-wise, you're good to go. Monitor-wise, you need to update your monitor. So you got to go to Blackmagic's website. You got to make sure you download the 3.21, I believe, for the current firmware on the monitors. Once you have that done, and be aware if you've never done those updates before, they take a while. So either make sure your monitor's plugged into mains or make sure you've got, full batteries on there. I don't recommend doing firmware updates on batteries. But what you get access to here is you get access to being able to use RAW over HDMI in different formats. So there is the ProRes RAW format, which you can do in camera for almost all the same resolutions, almost. But over HDMI, you have a more expanded capability, because now you can shoot in Blackmagic RAW. So if you're a DaVinci Resolve editor, or you just prefer Blackmagic RAW, cool, you've got it, and you can use it with the external recorder. So I've got my S1R2 here, and what we're going to do, what we're going to do here is, I'm going to turn this on. I've had this camera on for 3 hours. So we've got everything set up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to access through the menus. So to start with, you're going to go into the menus, you're going to be in the video mode. And when you're on the video mode, you're going to come in and you're going to see the second image format here. That's going to say HDMI raw data output. We're going to turn this on. Now, what you're going to notice here is I don't have an output anymore, because now it's outputting raw video. What that means is that as of now, I have to change to my other camera, my top-down view, which has the monitor here. So we see that I've got my S1R2 ready to go here. I'm going to take my HDMI cable, and we're going to plug this into the HDMI. You're going to see some cycling here. Turn the monitor up that way. You can see the cycling here. And then now, all I have to do is tap on the recording options here, change to Blackmagic RAW, close this out. Now, we've got Blackmagic RAW being pumped through into the recorder up here. So there's a couple things that you want to know about this. As I said, it is a pretty straightforward use case of this. I've got everything plugged in. Right now, I've got the camera set up in 8K. So we are outputting... actually, let me change the focus of this. So let's focus down here. And for those that want to know, my top-down camera is a S1H, and I'm using LUMIX tether to adjust focus and stuff like that. So right now, you'll see that we're in the 8K recording mode. This is why I do these in 4K, so you can see the stuff here. So when I go into the menu, actually, let me see if I can do it this way. We're going to move this up. Give me a second. There we go. That's a little easier for y'all to read. So, what I've got right now is I am in, RAW over HDMI on. And when I go into my rec quality, you're going to see that I have different rec qualities available now. So to start with, I've got my 8.1K. This is 3:2 ratio. This is 24 frame or 2398 frames per second. It's linear PCM audio. And something that we're going to talk about quickly here is that I have proxies available for this. Now, one of the other options you'll have here is if you go to the 17:9 ratios, this is where I can get to 30 frames per second or 2997. I have a 24 in 17:9. I also have a 7.2K open gate option, which gets me 30 frames per second, so 2997. This means that I'm not going to be doing full 8K from there. I'm going to have a very subtle change from 8.1K because you're going 8.1K to 7.2. But I can do up to 30 frames per second. Then I go down into the pixel-to-pixel options. This is where the 5.7K different options are for that. And then you'll see that we have a 4:3 APS-C up to 60 frames per second as well. Again, these are going to be pixel-to-pixel readouts because they're going to be in the APS-C region. And you have access to all of these for the Blackmagic RAW functionality. So whatever you select here, you're going to have access to. Now, I mentioned that you see proxy available. What's cool about this, and this is something that you can only do when you're doing RAW externally, and at least in this case for Open Gate, is that if I'm doing the 8.1K Open Gate for my RAW, I can come down to proxy settings, I can turn these on, and I can select whether or not I want a 1920 by 1280, 3:2, 14 megabit per second, or I can go to a 3:2 at 7 megabit per second. So you have proxy functionality with RAW over HDMI. Now, when you turn this on, one of the things to notice here is that the main video, in this case, because you're going to be doing RAW over HDMI, you'll see USB SSD or a RAW HDMI device is going to be out in the main recording. So if it's RAW internally, that means that it's going to be going to CF Express or SSD. If you're HDMI RAW, obviously you're going to HDMI. But your proxy is always going to go to card slot 2. So you would need an SD card in here in slot 2 to store out your proxy files. That's going to give you that flexibility so that, hey, you want something quick that you can work with? You've got it. If you change the resolutions, so let's go down to the 7.2K. We'll change the resolution there. It's got to cycle a second as it tells the monitor that it's changing resolution. Let's go to the proxy settings. You'll see you have the same proxies available. And then if I go back and let's change this to the 5.7K 24p. Under proxy settings, again, there's your resolutions for it. So those are 2048 by 1080. So what are those, 2K? And this will be 13 megabit or 7 megabit. So a little bit of a difference is there available for you. Outside of that, that's as simple as it is. You've got that. Oh, nope, it's actually not. There is one other thing that you want to take a look at is the triggering info. So if you come into the output, you go to HDMI rec output, you'll see, oh no, that's right. We don't have to do this with RAW. Never mind. If you're not recording RAW, you would want to come in and do HDMI recording control. But when you're in RAW, you don't have to do that. But that's how you access the RAW footage for the S1R2. It's a pretty straightforward system when we look at like what you have the capabilities to work with. So if you've never looked at the video assists before, pretty straightforward, kind of interface. Tap on this, gives you whether or not you want constant quality or constant bit rate. You can go through the different versions here. Constant bit rate will be your compression, so 3:1 all the way to 12:1. If you're not seeing the monitor activate the RAW image, two things you want to check. One, first, make sure that your frame rate or that your firmware is up to date, that it is on the most current firmware available for that recorder. And two, make sure that you're using a good HDMI cable. I am using one of the Kondor Blue HDMI cables. This is, actually I'll unplug it to show you. This is the one that I'm using. It's just one of the coiled HDMI cables, but this will let me do raw over HDMI because it is a very high amount of data that is being processed for it. So just keep that in mind when you're going to be working with it. It is pretty plug and play. So if you're going to go between using, say, an Atomos recorder, so if I'm using, which is this is a Ninja 5 Plus. If I'm using one of these, same thing. Make sure that the firmware is up to date so that you can get access to the raw support on this. On the monitors, that's pretty much straightforward. It's just going to come down to what media source you want to use. Obviously, Atomos uses the SATA connector here, so you'd need a caddy with a SATA compatible drive. The video assist, you have a couple options. You can either go USB-C out, which when I am using it or playing around with it, I use the Kondor handle as my recorder for that. So 1 terabyte drive that goes USB-C into the bottom of the video assist. That's how I get my storage for that. But you do also have the ability to record to SD cards on the video assist. The one thing I will say is that you got to really make sure you've got a good SD card. Otherwise, you're going to get errors and problems with it that way. So, let's see here. Let's go back and take a look at some more of the questions. Oh, and yeah, so I did have the, let me go back to this one. So you saw it at the beginning when I switched over to this shot. I did have the heat warning on the camera. It is currently right now 81 degrees in my office because I have the door closed and I have a desktop. It's been plugged in over USB-C for power, which you saw me unplug, and it immediately went away once I did that. So, yeah. That camera's been on for a while. Let's see here. Questions. Ah, there we go. Okay, there we were. Doogieham? If I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. What is the best way to share feedback on suggested improvements to focus stacking the S1R2? One of the best ways that you can get us feedback is, well, there's two places. You can either head over to our Discord, which is discord.gg/LumixUSA. There's a link down in the description. If you're not on Discord, you can leave those comments right here on the comments of the video. That will let you, like, one that lets us search it. We can go back through it and see it. But yeah. Thanks, Kofi. Let's see here. Yeah, so Discord, there is a suggestions channel on our Discord, and then on the YouTube, on this video, you can just leave it in the comments after it's posted. We look at both areas. If you leave stuff on the YouTube comments, it's easier for me to see them when I'm referencing for a follow-up video or next week's stream kind of thing. Just because it's in one place. I don't always remember to go check Discord for the Lumix Live stuff, but we will see it in both areas. I would like to lobby for a full-frame version of the GX8 with a tiltable viewfinder. I think that would sell well. How's that doing for the other one? Sorry, tiltable viewfinders are an interesting topic these days. Will the Kondor Blue dummy battery work with the S1II? If not, is there a way to lock the proprietary USB-C dummy battery from Lumix? So, we don't recommend, formally or realistically informally, we don't recommend third-party power solutions with any product. Because we have no control over whether or not they have things like temperature sensors or voltage warnings or voltage protections put in place. Most of the dummy batteries that are out there that are barrel jack, you know, I have had people that, you know, call in or submit or message that say, hey, I plugged in my camera to the V-mount battery and it fried my camera. Well, it's because the adapter didn't regulate the 16 volts you just threw into the camera. So I can't in good conscience recommend third-party power solutions. However, it is your camera. You do with it as you please. When it comes to our adapter, the DCC-18, the DCC-18, that is a USB-C power solution, so that will run even from like my other kind of setup that I have here. This is my S1 Mark II, and I have one of the Sur Anamorphics on here. This has, actually I saw this from Vu, this has SmallRig's kind of V-mount plate. This is the mid-tier one, so I can slide it back and forth. I've got a SmallRig, just VB50 battery on here, and that's running USB-C into the dummy battery, and then it's just tucked up here. You couldn't see where I pointed. It's tucked up behind the display. So if I needed or was concerned about that cable coming out, honestly, all I've done in the past is I just take a little bit of gaff tape and I just wrap the connection. Sometimes I think we get maybe a little too, needing a very specific tool for that when gaff tape makes most sets and most situations run. Same concept with like duct tape. Duct tape can fix everything or almost everything, and gaff tape's kind of the same thing in my view. So I use gaff tape just to put it, even when we do like trade shows sometimes where we use the DCC-18s, we plug those in, plug the USB, and then just throw a little piece of gaff tape on it. You'd have to pretty intentionally try to get that cable to pull out. The other tip there, if you're going to use USB-C power, is make sure that you're doing good cable management on the chassis. If you've got cables, you are way more likely to snag a cable if it's just kind of hanging off the camera. The more you can tidy them up and, kind of keep things, nice and kind of organized, you're way less likely to run into a problem of yanking a cable or pulling a cable, that kind of thing. So, yeah. On the Panasonic side, does HDMI RAW output change depending on BRAW or ProRes RAW detected? Same exact RAW signal no matter what. Yeah, we just send the RAW info out, and then the monitor recognizes the RAW data, and they do their stuff with it. So, is there a possibility of cropless image stabilization coming to third-party lenses, or is there a technical limitation? Why is this limited to Panasonic glass? So, top down, as of right now, cropless image stabilization is limited to our lenses for one main reason. One, we know our optical formulas. We know the area outside of what is captured for the image. So there's two things. There's the projected image, and then there's the recorded image. They are different. They can be different anywhere between 1 to 5% based on the sensors. If you've ever looked at technical specs for a product, you'll see total resolution and then effective resolution. And the difference in there is that one, total resolution, you may have a 24 megapixel sensor, but in actuality, it's actually like a 26 megapixel sensor. There's the aspect ratio 3:2 that's recorded, but sometimes that resolution is actually greater across the entire board for various different reasons. Either it's area where the electronics are positioned. Maybe that region is so far to the edge of where, image resolution or sensor lenses are designed to cover. Whether or not the mount actually partially covers some of those regions. But ultimately, what cropless stabilization is doing is it's using a various different amount of data. We know our optical formulas, we know what digital corrections are done to the lenses, geometric corrections, distortion, things like that all modern lenses do. This isn't just an us thing. All modern lenses have digital corrections done to them. So we know all that information, and we have more area. We know how to use the other area. that's, you know, maybe not necessarily part of an image. So we can do it. So the problem with trying to do that with third-party lenses is that we don't make the lenses. We don't know what kind of geometric corrections are being done to them. We don't know how accurate they are. We don't know what image circle they were designed for. You know, for example, you've got some lenses like, you know, this is the Sirui 20mm 133 autofocus anamorphic. I like this lens for various different reasons. I like this lens, but technically, can I shoot with it in full frame on a camera? Yeah, I'm gonna get real heavy vignetting on it. Is that what Sirui designed it for? No, they designed it as a Super 35 lens. Clearly, it's everything they've said it was. Same with, you know, various Sigma lenses and stuff like that. So, because we don't make them or control them, we can't add stuff like that to it because we don't know what they're doing for their glass. Yeah. Let's see here. Love my S5II and my S9. My request: as a solo YouTuber, I'm using external monitor facing myself. The focus box and crosshair is extremely thin. Can you add a setting to get them bolder? We have gotten that request before. We've also gotten the request about changing the focus to a box over the eye instead of a crosshair. There's a lot of stuff that the engineering team is working on. You know, what's possible to be done. EH says, on the GH6-7, I've noticed when moving from dark to bright, the EVF, not the recorded video, has a brightness shift that is very jarring instead of a smooth ramp. Is this a bug? I have to double check. I think there is a control. So EH, when you put the camera to your face and you're looking through the viewfinder, if you navigate to the menu, like the display option, I think there's a control for the ambient sensor in there. Kind of like how the rear screen has the monitor backlight. By default, it's set to auto, and then you've got the ability to change it so that it's not going to react that way. I think that's what that is on those cameras. I don't have a 6 or a 7 here right now that I can check, but I'll check into it, EH. Leo Photo has an L bracket for the S1II series, LPP-S1R2, but it's very new. Don't know if it's available. Oh, that's interesting. Let's take a look at it. This is Leo. Make sure I spell this right. Leo Photo LPP-S1R2. Leo Photo. Ooh, that is a nice looking one. That would be nice. Yeah, I'd be curious if that is shipping yet or where you would be able to buy one. Because that might actually be what some people would need. Leo Photo US. Their main site doesn't show for S1R Mark II. So, yeah, I guess it's not available yet. I'm not going to put a link down to the site because I don't know the company, and I don't recommend companies or websites unless I've purchased from them before or we have worked with them before. So you guys have Google. You can take a look at it. FC, with continuous AF set to mode 1 or mode 2 in camera's video settings, are there differences between AFS and AFC switching position as far as continuous focus? So that's going to depend on which camera you're on, FC. So let me change this out of RAW. Let's take a look at the camera. So one of the things that you'll see in the S1II series, I don't remember where this is in the menu, because it's not something that I ever change. So we're talking about AF, so this is going to be under the AF menu. Actually, is it under AF menu or is it under custom settings, video movement speed? I was literally just looking at this the other day. So there is a change that was made. Actually, I think it's under power saving. So if we go into power saving, yes. So on the S1II series, we moved where the continuous video AF option is. It's now under the power saving menu. So you'll see if I go into here, I've got during recording or constant. Constant means that it'll be, focusing during standby. During recording means that it only will work when you're recording video. This is a power saving function. It is on constant by default, so you don't really have to come in here and change it unless you are fine with wanting to change it that way. But what that means is that in the menu, we also have another option, if I can remember where it is. So many different things in these cameras, and even I don't always know where they all are. So what you'd see here is AFS behavior in video mode. So this option, obviously, because the way I've got everything set up, it's not something I can change because I'm outputting HDMI. If I'm not outputting HDMI, I can change this so AFS behavior acts like AFS. What this will do is this will adjust so that the physical switch on the back of the camera for S, C, and MF will actually represent for video use as well. So if I change it to S, it will only be single focus. It's a push to focus system. C will stay continuous focus, and MF obviously goes to manual focus. So you do have an option in these cameras to do that. In the previous generation cameras, I don't believe there was a way to do that. You had to manually say, I don't want continuous focus in video, and it was kind of a unilateral thing. So little differences when you look at with the newer cameras. Does anamorphic desqueeze work over USB-C, or are you desqueezing through OBS? Tails, I am desqueezing through OBS. So I'm sending the squeezed 16 by 9 image, and then I'm just desqueezing it in the software. It's actually quite easy. I learned from Tito how to do that. Jack says, got a wordy question. Let me take a drink of my lovely Cane's lunch. Super healthy. Got a wordy question. When powered via dummy battery off a V-mount, I've had the video file completely corrupt, delete if the battery dies while recording. Granted, I'm using an aftermarket dummy. I bought it before the official one was released. Are there any dummy batteries that would resolve this issue? So, powering externally through a dummy battery that doesn't have any kind of power sensing to tell the camera, hey, I'm about to lose power, I need to stop this recording and, close the file out, you're going to run into those problems. It's one of the big reasons why I do not recommend third-party accessories. If you really want full-blown redundancy, my biggest recommendation is if you're going to use any of the cameras, use them with a battery grip. So you have the BG2 battery grip for two reasons. One, you leave the battery in the camera, so you have a fail-safe redundant power. Then two, in the grip, that's where the DCC-18 would run into, because with that, when you're using that solution, if power gets cut from the wall that way, and say on the S1R2, because this was an early thing, the S1R2 requires the grip or a DCC-18 for all of the functions over like HDMI. That system does actually have the setup so that it will fall back over. It will close the file out. Even if the internal battery isn't full power enough to run the actual operation, it's one of the reasons why we do battery in camera and battery in grip. If you're going to do it that way, you've got hot swap functionality on the S1II series. If you pull the power, from that, you've got the ability with it. The more kind of important thing, like if you're going to run it the way I have mine set up here, which has no redundancy for power, because literally it's powering off this battery pack. In most cases, it's literally just getting in a good habit. Any battery that I ever use, I never let batteries get to the point where they flash. Or where if it's like on this, I never let this get below 10%. One, lithium batteries you should never run fully down anyway. It's bad for their health. And two, if I'm going to be shooting something and I know that it's going to be more than, say, like 30 seconds, and I know, like, hey, that battery is flashing red, yeah, I'm not going to start the video recording there. I'm going to change the power solution out. If I'm using this and it's at 10% and I got to record something that's going to be, potentially a longer take, I'm literally going to just pop this out and put a battery in here instead, if this is at 10%. Some of it is just, I know it's probably not what you want to hear, or some people want to hear. Sometimes that kind of stuff just comes down to good practice. Not saying people don't have good practice. It's just, I've done it before, and I know what I've had to do to get myself to stop doing stuff like that. I did it years ago, even before I was with Panasonic. So, are there any Panasonic B-RAW sample files? I would like to learn what happens with the color space. I do not have any files that I can share. The camera records in... It's encoded as Vlog vgamut, and the reason for that is so that you can utilize the tools in our camera, because that's what we've built, right? We've got waveform, vector scope, luminance spot meter, false color, all that stuff's built originally around Vlog vgamut, and our built-in color profiles. So if you're going to be shooting in RAW, you have that ability to still use the tools in the camera and the various different tools that would be built into the monitors. Once you bring it into software, you can change it to whatever you want. It's raw data. It doesn't really have anything encoded in it. So that's why, I kind of also laugh a little bit when people are like, well, RAW is 422 or things like that. It's not. It's raw. It doesn't have chromosome sampling. Your software is converting it into a readable file that's editable. So, yeah. I would check, some of the different groups, some of the Facebook groups, various groups out there. Some have that stuff, so you've got some ability there. Let's see here. Where did that other question go? There's the color space one. As far as what is better with Blackmagic RAW between the different, constant bitrate or the constant quality or all of that kind of stuff, I am definitely not the person to talk about that. I would recommend, following up with people like Kofi or Cam or Terry or, anyone in the group out there that reviews products, that understands, that works with these cameras, that actually goes out in the field and creates things with them. I screw around with RAW. I don't shoot in RAW. I don't even shoot in ProRes. I shoot in 300 megabit per second. If I'm using the R, I will do 8.1K open gate now. Otherwise, I'll use the S1II for that stuff, but I'm still shooting an open gate for it. Yeah. Let's see here. Kofi says Sean hit the Kermit meme. Why do I suddenly feel very old that I don't know what the Kermit meme is? Or maybe I do and I'm just not recognizing it. Let's see here. Will Cinelike A2 come to the GH7 or S9, S5II, S5IIX? I may have asked this before. Danny, no clue if the Cinelike A profile is coming to any of the other cameras. Yeah. Would it be possible to add anamorphic desqueeze for photo mode? With so many wonderful anamorphic lenses and someone who shoots more photo than video, it would be really helpful. I would absolutely love anamorphic desqueeze personally. The more people like yourself tell us, the stronger argument people like Matt and I have to try to get stuff like that done. I would love to see it. I would be fully selfish in saying I would love to see it because As much as I like this because of, some of the, the anamorphic video stuff, like I like the look of it. That's why I stream like I'm doing now. I've had some of the best, kind of fun and greatest photographs that I've taken recently shooting with anamorphic lenses and stills, and just kind of dealing with the fact that I can't view them as de-squeezed. So yeah, the more you guys tell us that you want to see something like that, the easier it is for Matt and I to do that. Let's see here. Will HDMI cable quality affect signal to noise using BRAW? Some people haven't used RAW before, and not knowing that there is no internal denoising, wonder if cables affect anything. It's a good question, Kofi. So it shouldn't. What you're gonna basically run into with HDMI cables more often than not is you're actually just gonna run into the cable works or doesn't work. So the cable will work, meaning you're going to get the signal. It's going to have, all the pass-through with it. Any kind of interference or signal noise that you get, I think, is going to be immaterial because you're sending data. You're not sending a video feed. So the monitor's got the data one way or another, and then it's putting it together. But yeah, you just really want to make sure that you use a good quality cable. Don't go by, HDMI 2.1 or 2.1A or B or 2.0. Those specifications are too broad to tell you what the cable's actually capable of. You want to make sure, for anyone that's looking at it, you want to make sure that you are using like 48 gigabit rated cables. So you actually want to see a cable that's rating what its throughput is. That'll mean that 48 gigabits overkill, but that'll mean that it is going to have more than enough bandwidth to do RAW over HDMI. Let's see here. Love Without Borders. Love Without Borders. S1H coming in September. What? That's just more proof of someone who has absolutely no idea and is speaking out of their... I gotta tell you, man, sometimes I get just so beyond annoyed at the internet. But I'm on here for a living now, so let's see here. Alliance member lenses are not third party. Correct, they are not third party. However, their lenses are their own product. So while they're not third party, they are their own lenses and their own company. So, let's see here. Can the manual focus white 4-corner box be removed? This box is very distracting when shooting manual focus. No, unfortunately, it can't be removed. I use external PD 9-volt 3-amp when the battery is low. Yeah, that's another really good option, is plugging into the USB-C port. Though if you're using a dummy battery, which actually I should probably double check this. I don't know if that works. Actually, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't know if it can reverse power that way. Because at that point you've got two inputs of power coming through and trickle charging, that kind of thing. I'll have to take a look at that. I'll actually ask the engineers before I try any of that. But yeah, plugging in USB-C right into the camera. If you're not using the USB-C for like SSD storage, theoretically you should be able to power the camera that way. Kofi says, going to show off B-RAW besides the Ursa 12K end of the month. Woo boy. Looking forward to that. Can we please have false color in the S1H, Sean? Anticipating your response. Surely the processor can take it. No, you're not going to get on S1, the original S1 series, you're not getting any of these updates. I can definitively tell you that. You will not be getting any of these updates on the original S1 series. They are older architecture software, older architecture processor. They're older cameras, and it's just not coming to them. Sorry. This is what happens. After 6 years, sometimes things don't come back to older products. We try to do a really good job keeping products that are at least relevant generations as up to date as we can. And I know we have a really good, kind of reputation with that. But at some point, like, I have a 5-year-old motorcycle. I'm not demanding Honda give me the updated console because it's plug and play just because the bike can take it. It's an unreasonable thing in modern because everything's designed on a different product. So, yeah. Sorry. Unlike the GH7, the S1R2 crops in ProRes RAW. No, the GH7 crops ProRes RAW as well. Our deployment of ProRes RAW, or any RAW for that matter, our deployment for RAW is pixel to pixel. The reason for that is that RAW to us is raw data. If you start with a higher resolution image, downsample it to be able to keep field of view, you are pre-processing that information and baking in things like noise reduction or sharpening algorithms or any other kind of stuff that you don't have control over what is being done to that image. So raw needing to be raw, because that's what its name is the raw data from the sensor being encoded as ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW for the HDMI stuff, or ProRes RAW internally. That's our take on it. So that means that even in the GH7, if you wanted to do like 4K or any of the lower res RAW formats, it'll crop in. Even the 5.8K is a very subtle crop on that because it is still pixel to pixel. On the S1R2, 8.1K gets you the full height and width of the recordable area. You'll see some of the resolution numbers change a little bit from like an H.264, H.265 compression versus the RAW or the ProRes number. That's because of whatever the standard resolution sizing is for it. But yeah, it is always going to be pixel to pixel. It's one of the reasons why the S1R2 doesn't do 1080p ProRes RAW. Your crop would have to be so small on that sensor that it doesn't make sense to do it, or windowed so much on that sensor. Has there been interest in enabling add another voice for D-Squeeze, which still taken with anamorphic lenses? Yeah, definitely top down. Has there been interest in enabling a setting to remove manual focus four-corner box? As a former Sony shooter, being able to have manual focus without visual obstruction is great. It's been so rarely recommended or asked of us that I honestly can't give you a clear, how many people actually care about that. It's also one of those things that even if it is something that would be changeable, it's going to be pretty low on the priority of stuff compared to what a lot of other people are asking for in the general use cases. So yeah, we're always looking at like, is that stuff? So it wouldn't surprise me if the engineers have that feedback and have looked at like, hey, is this something we can do? Is this something worth it? How many people are actually asking about it? To determine like, is this something that we'd be able to do? So yeah. Tommy says, I know my S1R is old and fat, but I still love it. Hey, Tommy. This is my emotional support S1R. I love this camera. This is like one of my favorite cameras that I've ever shot on, which is why I actually went through the process of getting it converted, because I was not going to get rid of this. Not that I could have gotten rid of it because, working for the company kind of thing. But yeah, I really, really like these cameras, but so many people hated this size and design and chassis. Like, across the board, unilaterally hated these designs. So, yeah, maybe there's a lesson there as far as designs go. Maybe people are too quick to hate on things in general. So, be kind to everybody. Be deliberate in what people think is good or bad, not just for the sake of saying something's bad, right? It's still a great photographer's camera. I wholeheartedly agree with you. S1R doesn't overheat. The S1R barely pushes anything at all in video. Your point being? In fact, S5 II, S1 series, they're so, by comparative speaking to what modern cameras do, they are pushing so much less information and data. They're doing so much less processing than what modern cameras are doing, at least as of the last, couple of years, that it's a false equivalency to say, well, this camera didn't do that, this camera does. Even now, what other product shoots 6K? Can you do an actual straight shot comparison? Is the 4K 60 on this product and the 4K 60 on this product, are they both downsampling from 6K or 7K? Are they both shooting at the same bit rate? Are they both using the same compression? No. They're all different. And modern cameras in general, as everyone has always said, modern cameras in general, everyone demands more and more out of them. They are pushing way harder than we did years ago. But you still have all the other options in there. That's why we have, how many video options in this camera? And this is the R. This is the not video first camera. We have 74 video recording options and formats in the S1R2. So, yeah. Let's see here. Please request LUMIX Lab app ported for desktop, please. I'd rather use this quick light app for post-color work on photographs. It's more than third-party programs. Yeah, there's some other challenges with LUMIX Lab for Mac or like Windows. So like you can load LUMIX Lab on a Mac. I can run it on a Mac. The problem is I can't connect to my camera with it because the way the MacBook handles Wi-Fi connections is different than the way a mobile device does. They all kind of identify differently. So like, yeah, it doesn't, like, functionally I could show it to you, but it doesn't let me actually do anything there. And that's a bit of a bigger challenge when it comes to that, but it is something that we have asked, like, hey, knowing that like Mac OS is getting kind of closer with things like iPad OS, as far as like there's more in an app store, there's more of that kind of concept. The fact that you can load it because they run the same processors. And now on the Windows side, now that you're running more like ARM processors, which can run apps and stuff like that, and even Windows has tried to do some of it, though arguably not all that great, you have some future that you could see that kind of stuff happening, but I think it's still a little too early because the user experience still isn't all that great, because apps are also designed for touch input, not for mouse input or cursor input, so that's another thing you got to think of. But things always happen in stages, so as these things get asked and as the industry shifts and as different ways of interacting with things happen, it's it's there. Kofi says, I haven't tried this, but can you use LUMIX Lab on iPad? I think the recent update added iPad. I don't have an iPad. I'm much more of an Android user, so I know I can use it on my Android tablet, but to be fair, Android tablet apps are just blown up versions of the phone apps. But I can check with Matt, Kofi. I don't see why it wouldn't work unless we didn't release the iPad OS version of it yet. We have stated that we're working on it, but that was at the launch of LUMIX Flow, so... Personally loved the S1 series design and thought the S1H was the pinnacle of the camera layouts. I was also a big fan of the original G9 too, and still have the pair. Yeah, this is always that crazy thing, having the different, chassis designs and bodies and the sizes and the formats and all that kind of stuff. Like, we can love those old designs, but ultimately, people got to remember that, sales are what determine whether or not a body is successful or not in the mass market. People unilaterally did not like those designs enough for us to keep them around. So adjusting and building what, our market surveys, what are conversations with filmmakers and photographers and videographers and YouTubers and, you name it, we interview. That kind of helps us understand what do people actually, in the broad scheme, what is it that the majority of people want? And the fact is, everything is almost always designed on what the majority wants. There are certain things that people will do, like we do a lot with, kind of democratizing video tools and functions. It doesn't mean that every person is going to, want or understand those features, but we'll still put them in because our belief is that we should be democratizing features and capabilities, not putting them behind hardware paywalls or, forcing you to have to go buy a higher end product. That's why our S9 has as much stuff in it as it does. These are what we consider baseline. If others don't think that those are baseline and think that you should have to pay for those things, that's on them. So, let's see here. How is the S1II with battery life for a day of keeping the camera on, shooting mostly photos? Aaron, I would recommend you taking a look at Johnny Hendrikis's video. It's on YouTube. He did he set up a time lapse to test how long the battery would run, based on photo count. And I think he got a crazy number of shots out of it. The thing with modern cameras you have to remember is that the battery life is more down to on time than necessarily shutter count. That's why SEPA's rating numbers kind of don't make sense in the modern digital camera world. SEPA's ratings were based on non-live view previewed cameras. I think they were back from 2008. Maybe even before that was when the standard was set. So if you're worried about battery life, I mean, I can tell you I've shot the vast majority of the day on a single battery. But to be fair, I'm not shooting professionally. If I was going to, I usually end up having, how many do I have here? I've got 1, 2. So this is usually, I will usually have 4 batteries with me if I'm going to travel. I'm going on a vacation next week. I'm taking 4 batteries with me. I'm taking a charger for them. And I've got my S1R2. Now, granted, I use it with a grip, so yeah. Let's see here. I love watching these, although watching it with the way you have your white balance and your lighting doesn't shine a bright light on. I mean, everyone's got different styles for it. I appreciate the feedback, Hank. Any news about the issue with TTL Flash? I don't have any info about TTL Flash other than I have talked to the engineers about this. Years ago, I had a report of a delay on S1II series that I believe we did fix or update. But I also don't experience those problems with the S1R2 and my Godox Flash. To be fair, I don't shoot TTL often, so I don't know if it's that I haven't been shooting TTL in almost a decade, that I just don't see what the challenge is. I shoot everything in manual flash, so it's possible that just might be more, experience. So in what I can help troubleshoot, I pass the information on that y'all share to us, to the engineering team or to the teams that are relevant to it. I try to do some testing on my side as well. I have a relatively wide understanding of how this stuff works, but yeah, I can't seem to replicate an issue with TTL on my side. That doesn't mean that it's not being looked at, but we have passed that information over to the team. So, feel like the S1H and S1R were perfect for the era of DSLR editorial photographers and fashion. A lot has changed since the time. Yeah, there definitely has been a lot of change in the almost 7 years that those cameras came out. By the way, Sean, love your response to Chris on the greatest camera of all time in the end being a GM series for Chris. Yeah, that was a fun kind of cameo to play in there. I do really like that Epson RD one though. Like, I wasn't even kidding. That legitimately was the first camera that came to mind when they came up to ask me that question. My GH7 bricked itself during the latest firmware update. Is there a way to flash the camera instead of having to send it in or off for warranty? Gitvo, you will have to send that in for service. They're going to want to know, how did you have the camera powered? If it was, what batteries were used? Did you have a lens attached? Was it one of our lenses? Was it a third-party lens? What kind of card did you use? What was the power level at? They're going to want to know all that kind of information, but that is something that would need to go into a service team to take a look at. Small Brown. Okay, yeah, that was the other one. So where does removing RTSP fit in meeting user requirements? Those are government requirements. RTP RTSP removal was based on legislation that was passed, I believe, in Europe. So if you have problems with that kind of stuff for user requirements, you got to talk to your governments, not to necessarily camera brands. We have to build products that are in compliance with laws. And if the laws change, sometimes, we have to make changes to certain things. So, Patrick, could you try Flash on your S1II and see if constant preview shows correctly? So I've actually had a long conversation with some others about this. Define correctly for you. Because for me, it works the way it's supposed to. For a lot of other people, constant preview works the way it's supposed to. If I put a flash on there, I am previewing based on what my exposure is going to be. So if I am setting a 200th of a second exposure and, say a 2.8 exposure, or a 2.8 aperture, and I know that flash is going to be my constant source of light, that's the correct way it should look. It's going to look dark because light, the strobe is my main, source of light. I recommend taking a look at Manny Ortiz video when the S1R2 originally came out. It's a little over halfway through the video. He talks about his experience with flash photography on the S1R2 compared to other manufacturers. And I think you have to understand, depends on what system you come from. There is different ways of doing it. It doesn't mean that we would never change it, but saying that it shows correctly isn't constructive. That doesn't help. What is it that you want it to do? Articulate those things out clearly, and those are things that then a company can take back and try to make sense of. So yeah, Patrick, if you can lay out in the comment section after this how you would want constant preview to work, that is a huge help. That helps us understand, is the way we're doing it the more common way, or are we doing it, kind of the less common way that the mass majority of people don't want to use? That's just generals of, giving any kind of product feedback. Yeah. So, I just realized that it is already 2:30. So, I'll answer this last one. On the latest models, could we get a firmware update where the optimal ISO values are highlighted, like maybe in yellow, according to whichever photo style is selected? That is a very good idea that I know we have asked before, and I would have to follow up and see if that is something that ever moved anywhere, or if it's even something that would be technically possible. I can say I don't see why it wouldn't be possible, but I'm not a software engineer, so... Okay. With that, y'all, thank you so much for all the questions, the back and forth, the conversations that we had, the friends we made along the way. No, thank you everybody for all of this. This is awesome. The feedback, the interaction, the chat that you all have amongst yourselves, that's awesome. to see. So if we didn't get to a question, or you want to, give us some more information of certain things that you want to see us do, you can articulate those down in the comment section. Like I said, the more clear you can get what it is that you want to see grow or you want to see change, the easier it is for people like myself or Matt or the engineering team or the product teams, when they watch and read the comments that you guys put, the easier it is for them to understand. So anything like that you guys ever want to suggest or recommend, like I said, you've got a couple places that you can do that. You can either do that down in the comments section at the bottom of this video after it's posted live, or you can follow us over on Discord. It's discord.gg/LumixUSA. You can register, or if you have a Discord, you can just, add it in and get yourself on that platform. There's a ton of conversation happening over there. There's an entire suggestions page. There's a Q&A over there. I do participate on there as well. So, between the weekly streams, you could always reach out on there and tag me, and we can have a conversation and hopefully, kind of address stuff. There's amazing other talented photographers, videographers, and creators in there that can also help out with stuff. So definitely go take a look at that. If you don't already, go follow us on Instagram. If you're someone who doom scrolls on TikTok, we usually have some fun humorous stuff over on TikTok as well. If you like this stream, if you like this format of the stream, give us a like, let us know in the comments, subscribe if you're not already, I will not be live next week. I am actually taking personal vacation, so really enjoying taking a vacation. But I will be back the following week live. And then we'll just kind of keep these conversations going. So other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday or Friday, wherever you are in the world. Get out there, create some cool stuff. Let us see it. Tag us and stuff that you post on social. It's at LUMIX USA or at LUMIX. We love to see what y'all create with your cameras. See y'all in 2 weeks for the next live. Or here on YouTube. Later, y'all. Bye.